All right, well, hello everyone, and welcome to week 12 of UABC's Tea Room. My name is Shirley, and I'm the current president of the Badminton Club. I will be your host for this week's podcast, which will be talking about what it's like to play in national / some international-ish tournaments in men's singles, as well as what training kind of looks like in singles at a more competitive level. So, with me today, we have a very, very special guest joining from Calgary, and his name is John Akin Mulrooney. So, John has been playing singles since he was, oh my gosh, the 15, 13,
14, right in the middle.
14, okay. And he has also had the opportunity to train for a bit in Vancouver at the Clearwood Badminton Centre, if I am correct.
That's the one, yep.
Currently, he is back in Calgary attending the University of Calgary, and he still does some coaching and training as well for singles, and he aspires to potentially go to the Olympics one day. Yay! So, welcome, John.
Thank you so much for having me, Shirley. I enjoy being back. I remember you had me for one of your earlier podcasts talking about badminton strings and shoes and shuttles, and I'm just honored to be considered again to have a one-on-one interview.
Yeah, thanks for joining us for today, John. I know you're a busy person. To kind of start off for everyone to kind of get to know you, could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you started out in badminton?
Yeah, for sure. So I started playing when I was 14, but at the time I was running track. That was my main event, and then playing volleyball. And then when I was in grade 8, I wanted to try to qualify for Athlete of the Year. And I needed one more sport, which gave me enough points to be eligible. And then so badminton was a sport that I didn't really know much about, and it looked pretty easy from just watching it because I didn't know much about it. So then at the time, my best friend Jason Louie and we'd always just go to the local rec center by my house, and we would just play for fun and everything. And he'd kind of coach me and help me get better so that I could join the team. We got hopefully play doubles. Um, and then so yeah, he trained me, and then thankfully that year I did make the team, and then I did win Athlete of the Year, which I'm very thankful for. But then the more I played badminton, the greater my passion kind of grew for it. And then I knew I couldn't be great at every sport. So I just picked the sport that I love the most and wanted to just devote my full time and effort to. And then badminton was the one that kind of won me over.
Oh, that sounds great. So what was it? There anything specific about badminton that really attracted you to the sport?
I think at the time when I was 14, I just thought it looked easy. And then when I started playing it, it actually was extremely tough and wasn't what it looked like on YouTube or like when you just watched it. It's much tougher when you actually play the sport and like get into like the nitty gritty details about it. So I think the the toughness aspect kind of like really drew me in compared to like when I was running track or volleyball. I'm not saying that those sports aren't tough, but there were just some things in badminton that I really enjoyed struggling over.
Definitely. I can definitely echo that as well, just because I've only dabbled a little bit in singles, but I absolutely hated it because it was so hard. I'm like the part that you liked, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, like it's so much more work and so much more endurance and whatnot. Was singles your first uh playing style, like between like singles, mixed, and then doubles?
Yeah, I'd say I've always been a singles player from when I first started out. I've played a bit of doubles and played a bit of mix, but I find with singles, it's I'm in control of my fate kind of. If I lose, I'm the only one who can say, "Hey, I either want to get better or I'm okay with staying at this kind of like mediocre level." So I liked how, if I wanted to improve my level, I'd have to work harder and get certain things done to get to the level I wanted to. So I liked the control of being my own boss, my own coach, kind of saying, hey, John, you're here. If you want to get here, you have to do, kind of like A, B, C, and D. And it's up to me to say, okay, I either want to work hard or I can be content with being at like whatever level I was at.
I see, I see. That makes a lot of sense. So, huh. So how does training kind of work for you then? Just because I guess it's a little bit easier just because you don't have a partner to really coordinate with. So, and Josephine did tell us last week how mixed and doubles can um be a little bit more like coordinating a lot of more communication. So can you kind of tell us what singles is like in terms of training?
Yeah, so right now I'm training at the Glencoe club, and thankfully, I would say it's a singles majority club. Like a lot of the other p players who are there are mostly singles players, so it's great for training, great for sparring. And then the coaches there, who are Brian Moody and Artie Warinata and Alexander Pang, they all have had great singles careers and some good doubles careers as well. So they really know what it takes to be at that international level of singles play. And then so the drills are kind of like revolve around, okay, what we need to do to kind of, bring the pace and the intensity to get to that international level. So I'm just very thankful that I have all these resources at my disposal to kind of, make me the best player that I can possibly be.
That sounds very good. I think it's really important to have a good support system, like no matter what you do, just because they really would give a better perspective and have a better understanding of what kind of hardships that you're going through, and as well what you might be able to expect kind of down the road and what kind of struggles that you may be able to encounter. So when you're talking a little bit about how they shared a bit of their kind of international experiences with you, I kind of want to touch a little bit on about that. So, what was it first like when you started playing nationally, and then what was it kind of first like when you transitioned from there to like international? Because I think you played at like a couple international. I think I remember you mentioning mostly the States. I'm not too sure if you played anywhere else outside of like the States and Canada.
Yeah, so I first started playing out provincially, and then once I was doing okay provincial, and I kind of, like leveled up to the national scene. And then that was it was interesting because I hadn't seen players who were that quick and that explosive and that powerful in a while. So it's kind of like eye-opening, saying, okay, this is what it takes to be like a national player. So I have to go back to the drawing boards and kind of, work on a lot of these tools. But then when I played a Canada Open in 2000, and I think it might have been 13 or 14, it was my very first international tournament. And then my mind was absolutely blown. The speed the players were moving, the pace that they were playing at, and just like the consistency and then the mental strength, it kind of opened my eyes again, saying, wow, I thought nationally we were here. But then internationally, it's kind of like blows your mind. It's just a different experience just seeing how quick all the other players are. Just seeing, okay, I'm here, they're here, and then you're able to see, okay, what do you need to do to kind of like bridge that gap and make it a lot closer.
For sure. So was that Canada Open the one that Chong Wei came to? Because I think he only just came to one, right?
Yeah, the one he came to 2015. That was when he came to, right before the
Oh,
Olympics in 2016. So I think I played either a year or 2 years before that one, but I also did compete in the one that Lee Chong Wei
okay.
played.
Did you compete against him?
No, thankfully for him, he didn't have the opportunity to play against me. But I would have loved the experience, and I would have loved just seeing what it's like to be world number one in badminton and just see,
Yeah.
what it's like.
But then he got to keep his spot because he didn't get to play you, right? So it worked out better for him.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and then he was able to qualify for the Rio Olympics, and it worked out well for him, we'll say.
Yeah, so he should actually be thanking you. I hope he's not watching this, right? If he ever watched this, he'll probably be laughing at us, but that would be kind of
Hmm.
oh my goodness. But yes, that was your first international one in the Canada Open. Have you gotten a chance to kind of explore the other realms of international play at all yet?
So I've played three tournaments in the U.S.
Mm.
One was U.S. Open, and then two were like U.S. international tournaments, and then one was another one at the Manhattan Beach Badminton Club down there. So those are kind of like all the ones I've played outside of Canada, but I haven't ventured anywhere to like Mexico or Asia or Europe yet. But hopefully down the road I'll go to those countries.
Yeah, totally fair. So, what was the biggest kind of differences you knew when you were transitioning from like a more national to international level play? Was there any at all?
Yeah, there are a couple for sure. One was, I think, the mental strength and mental fortitude is a lot. different on the international scene because everybody at that level, everybody they all have good shots, they all have good footwork, they all have good cardio, but it comes down to either their strategies or just how mentally tough they are. So for me, since I started when I was 14, that's one of my weaknesses, I'd say, because I've had less match experience. So the mental side of the game is a bit tougher. I just haven't played as much at like a competitive level. So that's something I'm still struggling with and still trying to improve and make one of my strengths. But I say that that's like one of the big things I've noticed on the international scene.
That's totally fair. I can totally understand why, because I think most people when they start playing out too, I think a lot of people I've heard they're like, yeah, I started playing when I was like 3 years old, or when I started walking, my parents gave me a badminton racket and I started playing and stuff. So I can understand why it's a little bit more difficult from your perspective in trying to, in a way, climb up the badminton ladder in a sense.
Mhm.
Um, what kind of challenges do you think that you've gone through? I'm approaching this with the sense that you might have had discussions with other players and your other teammates before on like their experiences or whatnot, but I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But what kind of challenges do you think, aside from what you've mentioned, that you have had to go through because you started a bit later that other people might not have?
Good question. I'd say I've had a lot of loss in my career. Just because I don't have that like tournament experience. So then people, because practice and tournaments, it's totally night and day. Practice, you win, you lose, it doesn't really matter. But tournaments, you come to play, everybody wants to win, nobody wants to lose. So I'd say that since I just haven't been put in that situation of like, wanting to win, having that pressure way down on me, I've experienced like a ton of loss, which is fine because you learn more from when you lose compared to when you win. But another tough thing I found is that just trying to, you lose a close game, you lose a game that's not close, but just trying to say, hey, you put your best foot up there. Let's get back to trading. Let's get back to improving. Don't be too discouraged. Of course, I'm frustrated, disappointed, and sad at the losses, right? But I can't just sit and say, oh, I've lost. There's nothing I can do. No, I have to say, okay, I've lost. I lost because of A, B, C. So I'm either going to sit here and feel sorry for myself, or I'm going to go back on court, work with my coach Brian, work with my coach Al, and say, hey, I lost. I need to get better. What do you think I need to do? What's missing in my game?
That's totally fair. I know that you had mentioned that when you first started out playing badminton, you really enjoyed it and it was really fun for you and really attractive for you. Has that changed at all since you started becoming more competitively and you've kind of talked about how you've had a little bit more losses than you would like? Like, has it affected like the fun aspect of your playing?
No, I wouldn't say so. Weirdly enough, I find the longer I play and then the better I get, the more motivated I am to keep on climbing the badminton ladder. Because as you get better, you see that there's so many more opportunities for you. And like, oh, I learned this new shot, so now I can add it in my game. And it kind of, it's like another tool in your toolbox. Right? So then you just find different ways to use all these different tools and then experiment here, experiment there. So yeah, my motivation is growing day by day as I play.
Aw, that sounds great. And I feel like it's always good to have like at least a bit of a positive outlook, which it seems like you have to kind of keep you going because I think it's really hard in any field and any type of work that people do, like to really just keep moving forward if you don't at least, give yourself a pat on the back every now and then and try to kind of focus on the positives and trying to redirect yourself through there. So I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I also had another question when you were talking about because I'm like backtracking a little bit because you're talking about kind of your training at Glencoe now. So what prompted kind of the decision to go to Vancouver and then afterwards to come back in terms of training just for people who aren't too familiar with like training, especially for like a competitive level, they might be wondering like, hey, like why wouldn't you just stay at home and like continue your training on there? Like why the different places?
Yeah. So at the time, so I graduated high school in 2014, and I moved to Vancouver shortly after. And I was in Vancouver for 2 years, trading at Clear One Badminton Centre. Um, So I'd say that one of the reasons I went is because they had a really good program there at the time, and they still do have a very good and competitive program. And that they had Sandy Arthur, who used to be a national coach in Indonesia, and Dale Young, who was a Canadian Olympian for men's doubles and knows a lot about the game. So at the time, I felt that was like a good fit for me, where I could just focus solely on badminton and not have the distractions that might be from where I was living at home. And I find I just needed to be independent and leave my house. It's like a chicken flying out of the coop to kind of see what the real world's like, and just to kind of like grow up a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But then living in Vancouver, it's quite expensive as well, so I couldn't sustain that forever. So eventually, I had to come back home, and then thankfully, Glencoe offered me a position there to do some training there, and I've been there ever since. I'm happy to be there.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Side note, I totally thought you were gonna say, thankfully my parents let me come home. I don't know why. I thought that's where you were going.
No,
Um,
no, no. They were sad to see me leave, and they were happy to have me back. So,
aw, of course you're their little boy. Yes, but anyways, how does the training differ between the two facilities?
I would just say at the time in Vancouver, they had more players who were training full time and more seriously. And at the time, kind of Calgary, it was kind of at I don't want to say a low point, but there weren't as many people, training seriously. And then I have a good relationship with Daryl down there, so he offered me a spot to come train at his club and said, "Hey, we have all these national players like Adrian Liu and Derrick and Toby Ing, who are all they all won nationals, and then Toby went to the Olympics, and then so I just had like a lot of players who had a lot of experience and who knew what you needed to do to get to like that international level, which is kind of like what I was missing at the time.
Okay, that's totally understandable. I think having more people, especially like close to your age and has because I know that even though you have coaches now that have had experiences prior to kind of playing badminton nationally, internationally, and all that stuff, I definitely can see how having people who have done it more like recently have because I know that the game's ever like forever evolving and changing. Because I even found out recently from Josephine that they changed the serving height.
Oh yes, so 1.15 meters now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I know that badminton's always kind of evolving. So having people to rely on that has like kind of more recent experiences and exposure to how what it's like to play now with like the new regulations. Because I'm assuming that some of the coaches that you had or have at the moment when they played, they might have even still had some like different styles of rules or like people had different like playing styles back then. So did oh no, how should I phrase this? I'm having a moment.
No, that's fine.
I guess my kind of question is kind of like after you came back and you had that experience, was it different for you here? Like was it more difficult to transition into a different type of coaching style or did you just find that as a helpful stepping stone in Vancouver to help bring back some knowledge with you now and then try to implement it into your training?
I'd say for sure it was a stepping stone because at the time I didn't really know like what training full time meant. Like would we just go and play for fun, or like what was training full time? So I think
Mm,
Vancouver really opened my eyes to see, okay, you have to work out all the time. You have to do a lot of cardio, do a lot of explosive work, a lot of on-court, a lot of footwork stuff as well, right? So I
mm,
think that from coming from Vancouver back to Calgary, I knew what I needed to do. And then Brian and Artie and Alex, they were like, okay, we're here for you, but you need to work hard, and we will, we're here to help you and give you the tools and give you, our kind of view on the game and how it's, ever evolving. And then so it's up to me to kind of, get it all done. But I think if I never went to Vancouver, I wouldn't really know what really focused and full-time training really was.
That's totally fair. So, what does the full-time training kind of look like now for you? Just because I know you're also a student full time. I'm pretty sure you're still full time.
Three classes, so I guess it's considered full-time.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, like that borderline cutoff full time. So yeah,
Mhm.
so what is it now like for you taking classes and coaching and trying to train full-ish time?
Yeah, well, I guess now it's a lot I say easier since everything's online. So I'm able to, do my classes after Glencoe Club in between training sessions. So now it's a lot more flexible because all of my classes they post the lectures on D2L, so I can watch them whenever I want, whenever I have free time. So I've been missing a couple classes because I've just been training, but I'll catch up, in the following days to come. So it's been good, but let's say like pre-COVID, it was a bit tough because I had to be on campus for a lot of my classes. So just working my trainings, I have to train sometimes at like 6 in the morning before class, and then go to class, and then come back and work out, and then on-court lesson with, let's say, Brian at like 2 or 3, and then evening training at like 6 or 7. So yeah, pre-COVID, it was a lot more tougher, and I had to have like a lot like a greater schedule, be like more time efficient. But now school is kind of secondary and can kind of flow around my badminton training and whatnot.
I mean, if it works, it works, if you just try to make it work the best that you can. So I just kind of want to touch on that pre-COVID scenario, just because I know that a lot of people in general, maybe not as much anymore for people, but like trying to grasp how other people are able to manage their time, especially under such a high stress situation where because you want to be so competitive, right? Like you still want to keep moving up the competitive ladder, yet at the same time you're still trying to balance school. I can imagine that can kind of take a toll on you, like your energy level wise, and like it's emotionally and like mentally draining, just because it is so go go go. What are some things that you kind of do for yourself to kind of make sure that you're still sane at the end of the week?
I'd say I try and get a ton of sleep because since I train so early in the morning, sleep is extremely important to me. So I'm usually sleeping by like 9:30 or 10 most school nights, and then just getting the extra hours of sleep. And um, diet is quite important too because before it wasn't as important. Maybe I kind of like eat some donair here, have pizza there, and all that stuff. But within the past year, I'd say I've been taking it a bit more seriously, like what I'm putting into my body, and I found that it's paid dividends. That I just feel like I have more energy. I just feel cleaner. Like I don't know if that makes sense. You just feel healthy. The joints feel good, the muscles don't ache, and the head's clear and ready to focus on like the day's tasks and goals. So I say that those two things are really important. And then for me personally, music. Music feeds my mind, feeds my soul for sure. So every day I have to have good music. There's some good songs out there, some great DJs and artists who kind of keep me motivated and keep me moving and grooving, we'll say.
Oh my goodness, that is so funny. Random thought, but what is your favorite song to kind of either train or work out to at the moment?
Favorite song? I would have to say it's a song by a DJ named Oliver Helding, and it's called Melody. It just has, a good beat, got some good violin in the background too. It's very upbeat and uplifting, and helps me get into the zone.
So it's got a good melody, would you say?
I'd say it's extremely important. Yes, the melody is quite good.
Oh my gosh. Oh, so I find it very interesting that you're talking about the importance of diet, just because I remember what your diet was like back when we were playing in Cartel and you went to Superstore and you came back with
Yes.
a box of cinnamon buns. I'm sorry to expose you. I just find it very.
No, 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 that's fine. Well, that was when I was 15 or 16, and you don't know how deep the ocean is, so you don't know, what it's like to be an athlete and whatnot. But I still have a very big sweet tooth. Maybe I won't eat a box of cinnamon buns, but still some candy there, maybe a muffin or a bagel there. For sure, the sweet tooth is still there for sure.
Well, I'm glad that the diet transition really worked for you and helped clarity with your thinking and thought process, like on court. Just a quick question about that too, just because I know that if for people who play more on the recreational side, I don't think includes me. So like I don't think they even think to process as many things on the court as much as a competitive player might. So how physically versus mentally demanding would you say it is playing singles on like competitively?